is 2:01, and we'll call this meeting to order.
You gonna do a roll call or? Yeah, we know who's here. All right, so welcome everybody to our May meeting. Our first order is review and approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion that the minutes be accepted as written.
Okay, motion's been made. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, minutes have been approved. The next item is the memorandum of agreement between Douglas Soil and Water Conservation and us. And I talked to Maggie today. Mark's here, let's make sure he has everything. So the Douglas Soil and Water Conservation District Board approved this memorandum of agreement last night. And so they are okay with it. So it's up to us to decide whether we want to approve it or not. I know Brian had some comments earlier.
But I found them in a sentence.
Okay. It's pretty straightforward. So I guess at some point in time we need a motion to approve it or not.
I'll make a motion to approve this memorandum of agreement.
Okay. Do we have a second? Is there any discussion of this? Okay. Call for the question then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that's passed.
You gave a second?
Second. Yeah, right here. Jerry did. All right. Okay, the next thing is election of the board chair.
I don't see any reason to rock the boat.
I second.
Al? Was that, okay, was that a movement and a
I'll
second?
make it.
If he makes it a motion, I'll second it.
Whatever you guys wanna do, so,
If you're happy with doing it, we're happy for having you do it, Steve.
all right, I appreciate it. I can do it for a while yet, but until I get too old. Timed out, so. Okay, then call for the question. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, thank you. I think. All right. Well, okay, so this is going faster than I thought. So our next, we have our presentation, and Crystal Shepard with U.S. Forest Service out of
I live at Tokenie.
Tokenie, all right.
Yeah.
That's right, all right.
All right. Hi. So I'm not sure the last time that anybody from the Forest Service was here talking with you guys. Do you, any of you remember?
Richard,
Richard, okay.
that was before the pandemic.
Yeah. So that's been a number of years ago. So I figured I would chat a little bit about our organization and then about how we're doing staffing and getting work done, and then talk about some projects that we've been working on. So I am the North Zone botanist. Like I said, I live at Tokenie, so I am seated, my duty station is the Diamond Lake Ranger District, as are all of my employees seated there. But I cover technically Cottage Grove, the North Umpqua Ranger District, whose headquarters are based out of Glide, and then also the Diamond Lake Ranger District. Because of the layout of the ground and just where we're located, the Diamond Lake District does tend to get the majority of our efforts, followed by North Umpqua, and then Cottage Grove is always last. We mostly get work done, so the Forest Service has had a change in, actually this just started in 2023, where we are moving away from hiring seasonal employees. So the expectation from the Washington office with change of funding is that we now try to do more of our work with partnerships and internships. So, but we also had a slight increase in the number of temporary permanent employees that we could hire. So this year, I have 3 permanent employees, one who's a crew lead, 2 kind of lower crew leads, and then also Katie Walsh, who is the district botanist at Tiller. She will also have 1 crew lead this year. So we get a lot of our work done with that. They lead our crews, and then our crews this year, instead of being made up of seasonal employees, are being managed through various partnerships. So we have 2 intern student employees from UCC on my district, and then 2 on the Tiller district. And those are, I forget if they're 13 or 16-week internships, but they go pretty much from when they get out of school until they go back again. And there's incentives for people that want to come back a second year. So, and we include housing and educational experience within that internship. So I'll have 2 people from UCC. Another partnership that we have is through, and this is funded with disaster relief funding that comes from the Washington office for landscapes that experienced extreme fire, like Douglas County in 2020 and 2021. But Chicago Botanical Gardens. So we get 2 interns from them, and they are specifically focused. More than half of their work needs to be geared toward emulating a protocol similar to Seeds of Success. So they are focused on collecting native seed. Last year I had 2 CBG interns, it's the Chicago Botanical Gardens, and we collected 461 pounds of seed representing 28 species. So that was pretty cool. And then after CBG, we also have an agreement with SCA, which is Student Conservation Association. And so their primary purpose is focused on weeds. So the way we end up doing the schedule is that, and this year was not an ideal year because it was the new hiring of the new permanent employees and our HR, everything's very late. This is very late to not have a staff on at this point in time in this county. So they will be starting, the first one will start next Monday, and then they'll start filtering in after that. But let's see, where was I going? Normally we would have the people that are focused on weeds starting earlier in the season, and then their season will be wrapping up around September. And then the people that are focused on seeds will be starting, you know, maybe like May, something like that, where they can first start catching like the phenology of plants, and then they'll be ending in like October after they've cleaned the seed and everything. So we'll have 2 staggered staffing with quite a bit of overlap then in the middle. We also do a lot of work with local partnerships. So the Phoenix crew, out of the Phoenix School of Roseburg. We hire them for 6 weeks every summer, and then this year we've also funded them for an additional 3 weeks in the fall. The 3 weeks in the fall we'll be doing some blackberry work and putting in some willow stakes and maybe collecting some tree seeds and stuff like that. And then the Coast Fork of the Willamette Watershed Council, which is based out of Cottage Grove. We also usually, this year we were not able to due to challenges with them, but most years we end up bringing them on for about 4 weeks every summer. And then, so that's covered our staffing. So moving on to projects. So we have 2 mandatory projects mandated by the forest that I work on, and one of those is the Pacific Power hydroelectric facility, that area. We contract through Pacific Power or partner through Pacific Power to do all of the weed treatments within the FERC boundary, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission boundary. So that is a buffered area around all of the reservoirs, all of the generation facilities, the power lines, etc. So we do all the weed work in there. The forest has our own weed list of weeds that we know of on the forest, weeds that we know of in the county but aren't yet on the forest, and weeds that we know that are in adjacent counties but not yet on the forest. So unfortunately with PP&L, they only will pay us to treat a much smaller list of weeds than what we would like to be treating. So we still, in the FERC area, we treat spotted knapweed, we treat blackberry, we treat Scotch broom, we treat yellow star thistle. I'm sure there's more, but then there's other things that PP&L is not concerned with, such as mullein, meadow knapweed, shiny geranium, things like that. So that's one of our mandatory projects. The other mandatory project is any area that the forest is doing either timber sale treatments or forest improvement treatments in. If we accept funding to do pre-treatment work for weeds in that area, then we are obligated to follow through on that, and then or if we accept funding to do post-treatment weed work. So, you know, those are the 2, like the FERC boundary and then we call it KV, but the timber sale work, those are the 2 mandatory things. After that, there's a number of sort of personal pet projects for me that get work every year, but they're not necessarily prioritized by the forest. They're more prioritized by how much time can I allow for them. But they usually end up getting about a third of our efforts, and one of those is working in conjunction with BLM, the Forest Service's Recreation and Trails Department, and we actually have an AmeriCorps crew here right now, so we're working along the North Umpqua Trail, and last year was our first year of, I had interns hike the entire North Umpqua Trail, map all invasive species, and treat. So again, that's much worse down lower, much better up higher, but we still did the entire section of the trail. And so that will happen this year too, along with a couple of different, like there's a volunteer day coming up on June 15th where I will be partnering with our Forest Service Trails group so currently I have a contract at Wright Creek to remove blackberry. It's the lowest open accessible access to the nut right now. Not the North Umpqua Trail. So currently I have a contract. It's been in its 2nd year treating blackberry there, and I would have liked to have done a contract at Apple Creek Trailhead as well, near Apple Creek Campground. I guess it's actually the Panther segment. But because of heritage concerns there, I could not contract that. So that AmeriCorps crew is here, and then the volunteer group on June 15th to treat blackberry at those areas, because the trail itself is not too infested except for in areas where there have been recent landslides and also like a lot of Canada thistle along creeks and stuff. But those trailheads are fairly bad. So, you know, we're gonna focus our extra effort on those. Another thing that we're working on with BLM is there was a false brome outbreak on a piece of private property way up Canton Creek, and that came down onto BLM property 15 years ago and has since moved on to Forest Service property. So that we start treatment at there's a bridge that's actually the border between BLM and Forest Service, and we coordinate with BLM and they treat on their side and then we treat on our side. unfortunately, it's moved out into the steamboat drainage now, so it's moving. So we're working on that.
Is the private landowner also involved, that it started on?
I don't think so, and by private landowner, I think it's a timber company and not necessarily like an individual's farm or something like that. And I'm not sure BLM has been the one that has communicated with them, since BLM is their adjacent neighbor, not us. Yeah, some communication happened, but it was prior to my coming on. Yeah,
Coordinate everybody involved there.
yeah. I started at Toketee as a seasonal employee in 2011, and so I'm still there. So I've been around a while, but I haven't been around that long. Yeah, big projects that we're looking forward to, and then other projects that are kind of in the thinking about process but haven't happened yet is, so we are currently working finally on our Forest Service weeds EA NEPA so that we can use herbicide. We're tiering that off of the NEPA that was already done at the regional level. So it's not gonna be anything any further reaching than that, but it will give us the ability to do a lot more. It will just give us a lot more tools in our toolbox. So we're looking forward to that. And
I was thinking that you already had it, that had changed a couple of years ago, you could, no, it had
That was BLM.
yeah,
BLM,
BLM was a
BLM.
whole new.
okay.
And unfortunately, we don't communicate very well together as agencies that are neighbors. And part of that has just been turnover in staffing and all that, but we actually had an opportunity to tie in with BLM to have ours written at the same time that theirs were, and it would have been a lot cheaper for us, but nobody at BLM communicated to us that that was happening until it was almost ready to be signed, so we missed out on that opportunity. But it is happening again, and then so we're hoping that we'll be able to go in. Particularly, I feel like we manage our spotted knapweed populations very well manually. I think the herbicide will be really useful for our blackberry infestations, and then moving on like down into the area that burned by Archie Creek downriver, especially on the north side of the river, north side of the highway. You know, it's beautiful right now. The Scotch broom is in bloom. It's gorgeous. It's really problematic when it comes to trying to plant trees again in that area, because it's almost like a double contract cost. We're paying contractors to go out there and cut or pull the Scotch broom, and then we're paying the same contractors to come back again and then plant the trees. So that's problematic, not very efficient. So we're working on that, and we do have some better communication related to that. Other specific projects, yeah, I mean, I've kind of given you like a big overarching view.
Floating yellow heart,
We still have floating yellow heart, but it has gotten so much better. So we have a regional agreement, participating agreement with ODA, and Carrie Perosco comes down, and she's very committed to eradicating the yellow floating heart. So she comes down twice a year, and she goes to Willow Sump, where the floating heart is, and sprays. And that has changed since I started. Probably the coverage on that sump that remains is like a 4 foot by 6 foot area over in one corner that she just can't get to because it's so far under the surface of the water. So we've been trying to coordinate something with hydrology where they do a pull down of that, so in preparation for her coming so that she can actually spray more directly onto the plant. But due to lack of a Forest Service hydrologist on the north zone, that hasn't really made it very far, but it's still my intention, hopefully, to do that. And then the other location is at Beaver Pond, which is further up Steamboat, and that was caught after Willow Sump, so it hasn't had the same progress that we've seen at Willow Sump, but I imagine it will just take the time to do so.
thanks.
Anything else?
So the BLM, or the Pacific Power
Mhm.
project, is that monitoring or is that treating?
Both.
So you can contract out to have it eradicated under the power lines or around the facilities?
So technically we could, so the way it has historically gone is that, I don't want to bite off more than I can chew, like with my crew, so I estimate each area, like, we can do Lamola 1, Lamola 2, we can do Clearwater 1, Clearwater 2, we can do like the Pacific Power housing area, we can do Tokenie Lake, like, we can do, these areas with the crew that we have, but 280 acres of Scotch broom underneath the power lines is outside of what we're capable of doing. In the past, we have not requested money for that kind of contract from PPNL, so it would be sort of switching things up to do so. But I think once we have our weeds EA, because the amount of effort and cost for people to go out and spray, say, 280 acres of Scotch broom would be way less than having a van full of guys go out there and cut or pull 280 acres. So I think we're sort of waiting for that. There are some allowances through our agreement with PPNL to do some herbicide treatments in the vicinity of the flumes and stuff. So when ODA comes down, that's another thing that Carrie does, is that we have a spot on the other side of one of the flumes that she goes to and sprays, and but it's just a small area. I don't even really think it needs our attention anymore. So in theory, yes, we can, but we have not yet because it doesn't seem cost effective.
So you haven't, can you spray on the right of way, the PPNL's right of way, or are you still,
We do not have NEPA for that.
okay?
Yeah, so that's where we need like the broader, the NEPA that covers the entire forest. Because there's only small allowances for populations that that were already known at the time of the writing of the original like MOU or whatever.
So
Does it,
who's taking care of that down lower in the BLM?
Well, we have a new
Right-of-ways.
person working for BLM right now. His name is Ryan Kay, and he also got 2 new staff members. Justy and Ian Grintner have moved to Prineville. Something else about.
So, but Pacific Power isn't doing their own.
Okay, back to that's what I remembered.
How much of it are they doing themselves?
Every 3 years, they do pay and they are mandated to have somebody come through and monitor. So every 3 years, we get an updated product of what they have monitored. But they don't do any of their own treatments. That, again, might change once they have the capacity to use herbicide on the forest. Then it would probably.
This year is their monitoring year.
Yeah, this year is their
They're gonna be
monitoring
all
year.
over looking at it.
Yeah, and the company that they are contracting with to do that, I think is called A&E, and we've already met, and they're probably getting ready to get out on the ground right now. They were anticipating they'd start about the beginning of June.
does PPNL, do they have a local vegetation management person?
They have Steve Albertelli, who's based out of either Medford or Grants Pass. I don't quite remember, but because we only meet online remotely, I can't even tell you what he looks like. Yes, so he manages all of that and coordinates with us. And then so every November we have our veg management meeting where I report back to him the work that we completed, and then also our expectation of the amount of work that we will complete in the following year, and then request funding based on staffing and all that. So currently there's only an avenue for paying for the people that we have and not paying for contracts, but I imagine that once we have a mechanism to actually have a more affordable contracts, that we'll be doing that.
So one of the things this group can do is that we can support some of your efforts for funding or other projects that are needed with a letter or something like that. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
I can't do that. I think it might help if the county stepped in.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, particularly.
Possibly if there's some weeds that aren't on their priority list, it might be on your priority list. We
Okay.
can upgrade those on our county weed list. And it might help
Okay,
persuade them to be able to
that's
pursue that.
actually very useful. So a problem that we're dealing with in the housing compounds right now and outside of the housing compound, transported by vehicles most likely, is rose campion, Silene coronaria, and I don't know if it's a problem down here, but I know that ODA is thinking about listing it this year. So that's kind of one that Pacific Power doesn't want us to treat, but it's all over their housing area. Because it hasn't been officially listed yet, so perhaps if that did show up on the Douglas County list, it would give me some weight.
Our list is on our website,
Okay,
county website you can go to find.
okay,
If you have specific questions, like Brian was talking about as far as doing temporary increases in certain areas, that's what we're trying to do to make it more practical for our
Okay.
purposes in the county.
okay,
And anytime you wanna call me and talk about it.
okay, great. Great. Anything else? Thank you all for inviting me. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say Rose Campion was one of them that actually Douglas Soil and Water, Maggie brought that one up, and I think that might be on our watch list, so she's another.
She probably got the same email from ODA that we
She
did.
may have.
Yeah,
So appreciate you coming, driving down here.
yeah, no,
Good information.
it's great. It's a beautiful day. It's nice. It's still spring up there and it's summer down here, so it's always nice to come down and visit. But I'll just sit and continue watching you all because it's entertaining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, next we have our educational programs, just to talk about those a little bit. Let's see, the first one we had, I'm gonna mention, is the Glide Wildflower Show. And, I think the first day, approximately 180 people came by while I was there in the morning, and I was told later that in the afternoon there were 300 people that came by. What, Brian, did you have very many?
We had a lot of people, I don't have a number or anything of Saturday morning or Sunday morning, but it was pouring down rain when we first got there, and I didn't think anybody would show up, but they did. First thing I wanted to do is come in the tent, and I don't think I sat down for more than about a minute.
I think we reach more people through that than probably anything else that we do as far as sheer number of people. I'm amazed how many people come to that. Not all of them are from Douglas County though, they're from all over. And then Tracy brought in some, we had a lot of examples of species there. Carrie came set that up and Tracy brought in a number of things, Maggie, so yeah, it was good.
Were there some plastic samples there?
Yes.
Okay, cause I was looking at those going, those have some cellulose veins in them, but this is plastic.
Carrie, I
Because you
guess
couldn't get them in bloom, I assume, at this time of
I
year.
don't know, I just remember Carrie brought those.
Carrie brought those, she says ODA has some of the species like
Really
that, so.
well done to be able to say, is that plastic or is that real? 'Cause
I forgot about
it was very, very detailed. It was good that, I'm not sure who brought the copy of our contacts page from our website.
it. We did that, yeah, we,
That was a good thing, I handed out several of those.
yeah, I used those too. Well, all right, and then last week, I guess it was, we had our Tree of Heaven tour. I thought that went really well. Tracy put that on. You wanna talk about it a little bit?
Oh, sure. I expanded on the tour that we did together, just tried to polish that up a little bit. But we ended up, I thought we were gonna go past time. At first, I thought it was too much time with 4 hours, and then I was worried we were gonna go past, but we ended it on about that 2 o'clock mark. But lots of questions, lots of involvement, and I think people learned a lot. We had representation from as far north as Drain, out to Camas where Steve's at, and reps from City of Drain, City of Myrtle Creek, and City of Roseburg, so that was good to see. Some other agency folks, mostly they were agency individuals, but we had a homeowner who had really close personal experience with roots damaging their home, unfortunately. It doesn't sound good at all, but it was good to hear from them and why they were there and their concerns from that regard. So, I don't know, I don't know if you had any questions about how that went. We handed out a lot of different brochures. We had a speaker there from ODA to talk about treatment, and I thought that our handouts were really good for this workshop as well. So, received some good feedback. I don't know, Steve, if you have anything to add about post-tour feedback or your thoughts on the tour.
I thought it went really well, and it was a lot of interest, folks had a lot of interest. The one, I was just looking for it here, the thing that impressed me, Carrie wasn't there, she wasn't able to make it, but she had Grant came up, and a lot of you have gone to Weed Day, will have heard him in his presentations. But so he did her part, but she had put together one of the best examples I've seen of how to treat Tree of Heaven, and with pictures. I've got it here, I'll pass it around later, let you look at it. I thought it was really well done. And she, anyway, with pictures from treatments that she'd picked up online, I think. So.
I should have brought copies with, that's what I was saying, we had some really good, I think, handouts, and I should have brought some of those along. So if anybody wants to email me, I'd be glad to send those your way.
And we only have part of it here, but it made the front page of the News Review. So. Yep.
Yeah, that's a pretty good copy.
I thought so too. Yeah.
How many people in attendance?
There was about 17, which actually I think worked out really well. It wasn't so big that I needed a loudspeaker or have people get situated and they could ask questions. So I think it was about the perfect amount. I did have some people who were disappointed that they couldn't make it, being Thursday during the middle of the day. I know is hard. Probably would have had a lot more people turn out on a Saturday or Sunday, but the weather was just perfect. So I think that makes a difference. It makes it more enjoyable too for an outside field tour. But I think if we did it again, we would have more people. Even internally here at the county, I know that there were some employees that wished they could have made it.
So if we did it again, would we pick a different species or a different time?
Well, I think we're talking about doing different species, and that's where the hawthorn that we'll
Right.
talk about next will come in. As far as a different time, I think that's possible. You will probably remember that May was a little early. Things were just starting to leaf out, but what I liked about that, in fact, I remember Rex mentioning that, is you just start looking for it and you see the red tips on those leaves, they start to kind of pop this time of year, and then you can monitor it through the seasons once you know where it's at. So I think May is actually good. You get some good weather and you get to see it progress through all those different seasons. But I think fall would be another good time when leaves are starting to change and you still see all the seed holding on the plants. So that would be another possibility with that particular plant. And I think that I may be speaking out of turn. I know that Shelby wants to talk about thistles at some point, but I'm not sure if she was talking about a tour.
All right. I'm not. Check with her. Okay. Any other questions? So right now we have another tour planned for May 30th, and the announcement should go out in the next couple of days, I hope. I think it's going to be on the county website, and it'll also be on the OSU Extension website, and it's going to be, folks will have to register for it because we're going to have a couple of vans, and probably maximum number of people we can handle in the vans would be 12 each, 24 folks. And the tour will be up in the around the Mildred Knipe Driver Valley area. You know, we're looking at, well, the focus is hawthorn, but we're going to see Scotch broom and blackberries quite a bit too. Those will be the major things. So there'll be, anyway, more on that, and I'll try to get you some info. I'll send everybody the announcement when we're ready to really get it out there. Meet up there about 9 at the park on the horse campground side. There's the pavilion and some restrooms when you first go in. We'll meet there and get in the vans, and we'll talk about hawthorn, English hawthorn, and go to one of the ranches there. It's a vineyard that's done a lot of work. They brought in a masticator and several different sizes. It's really impressive what they've done. Right across from the ranch, there's an area there that hasn't been treated. It's pretty striking.
One thing you'll probably see, Steve, just there, I haven't been up there in 10 years. Here, one of the old barns, the whole area around the barn was Canadian thistle.
Okay.
Just solid, like 30 to 40 feet deep. So I just point that out.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed that, but I haven't been, that's in the horse.
Further out.
Farther, I think I know where you're talking
Yeah.
about. Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, the county, I think the county is doing a good job there. Mark Wall, the park director, they're trying to take care of their problems as they can, and they've got I think it's under lease to ranchers, and part of their job is to look after that. They've had a masticator on the property, and I'm hoping that'll be there when we have our tour. I don't have that lined up yet. I guess can't think of anything else. I guess that's it for that.
Do they have an example? I'm just thinking about the Douglas hawthorn, which actually isn't a bad tree. I don't know whether they'll be
I will bring
example of
some.
that.
I've got some on my place.
Okay.
So I'll have some there again. So,
That was nice to see at Wildflower Show, your example of what is a native.
most people don't know, and I was a retired silvicultural forester before I really knew what it looked like too. So I found we've got about 4 or 5 on our place, and I used to, what is that? You know, and I finally started keying it out and realized what it was. So, it doesn't spread nearly as fast as English hawthorn. Okay, so new business. Does anyone have any new business they want to bring up? Okay, I want to mention one thing on our duties that we agreed upon. One thing was a pest day in the winter training, and so we haven't gotten very far on that. And I'm thinking maybe after the summer's over, everybody has their hay in or whatever they're doing, maybe we can get together with we kind of have an education group and talk about how we want to approach that. You know, things are different than what we used to have with Weed Day, and we need to think that through and try to come up with a plan that you guys are interested in. I'm just throwing that out. So.
I think planning on that is a good thing.
Pardon?
I think some long-range planning is a good thing.
Right.
With, something like a weed day.
Those are big projects. They take a lot of time. I've watched other committees do them. They're a lot of time and coordination with folks. So, okay.
It might be a good time to mention too that you mentioned about education, and in order for us to follow the public gathering rules, that if we can get the core group, sort of a citizen advisory group together to do what you're talking about. Otherwise, we'll have to get together and have formal meetings for each one of it. But that's why we were doing the subcommittee method, so that we can start to make some gains on those different things without having these coordinated public meetings like we do.
Which are kind of awkward.
Okay. Anything else? I think we can end this then. Till our next meeting. All right. Thank you for coming. I'll do this so we don't.
Meeting adjourned.